And Phyllis will do a formal introduction of Kriste in a moment. But it's so great to see so many of you, some folks that we see often at other meetings, and some brand new faces and names on screen. So we're tickled to death to have you here, and we hope that you find this information useful and and something that you can take away and either share with family members or friends. And because we are recording this session, you can go back to it. It'll live on our website, mrspa.org. Should you need to go back and review it or share it, talk to friends or family about it at a future time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Phyllis Cherry. She's chair of our Consumer Education Committee. Thank you, Phyllis.
Good morning and welcome again for joining us. As chairperson for Consumer Education, our task is to provide you, our members, with information that we feel is important and relevant to you as an effective consumer. We have done a lot of work on scams and effective purchasing, but I think there's probably not a topic that's more heart-wrenching and difficult than choosing a senior facility, a facility for our loved ones and when they're most vulnerable. I hope that you're looking at the monthly consumer connections, which are provided by MRSPA, and looking at the range of topics that we cover. If you have information, if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover, a webinar that you'd like us to do, please let us know. And please be involved through your local organization. And all of the committees here at MRSPA are looking for membership. So many of our meetings are Zoom, so you don't even have to take off your bedroom slippers to join us. But please now let me introduce Kriste kkidd, whose range of experiences is very broad, starting with helping with her grandparents as they got older, to being a director, an executive director at an assisted living. She represents one of the organizations that will help us through this process of caring for our loved ones when they're most vulnerable. So Kriste, welcome to this day and our webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you haven't already muted, if you would kindly mute. I have the attention of a squirrel, so I'm easily distracted. All right.
How to do that. Righty.
All right, so I'm with Oasis Senior Advisors. We are a referral and placement company for assisted livings. As Phyllis mentioned, I cared for my grandparents for over 11 years. I was in high school when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that was back during the time right around AIDS was coming out, and no one really knew about that, and no one really knew a lot about dementia. So it was definitely an experience. After she passed away, my grandfather, who was 86, moved in with me when I was 27 and my son was 2 months old. So I became a caregiver and a mom literally overnight, and I didn't know how to do either. So I learned through a lot of trial and error, and mostly error. And I wish I had the knowledge back then that I do today, because some of my decisions would be greatly different from my grandfather's care. But now that I do have the knowledge, and I can extend this to adult children and their parents, as you know, I help them on their journeys. I'm a certified thanatologist, which no one ever knows what that is, but it's the study of death, dying, grief, and bereavement. I'm also a certified senior advisor, which means I have to take continuing education in the field of the senior, field. I'm a certified funeral celebrant, and again, I did 5 years in hospice, and as Phyllis mentioned, I worked as an executive director, so I was licensed in the state of Maryland. So I just want to discuss the different types of licensed communities. to the continuing care retirement communities that usually has independent living, assisted living, some have memory care, and then your skilled nursing. They promise care through the end of life. This is a topic that you need to educate yourself on if you're considering moving to a continuing care. What does it look like if you're in assisted living and funds deplete? Do they have a benefactor program where they'll contribute funds so you can age in place? Because most times what happens when funds deplete, they want to open that apartment up to get a new resident in to get the money to pay. So if they're able to get a level of care, they're going to send that person to the nursing home when funds deplete. They typically offer high-end amenities and services. Some places have pools and pickleball courts and, really, really nice places out there. The rental communities are your assisted living and memory care communities. They usually have a one-time entry fee, which I explain is like a one-time HOA. It goes towards flipping the room if a resident moves out or passes away, and maintaining the building and the grounds. In the state of Maryland, under the Maryland regulations for assisted living, for any reason, if it's not working out at the assisted living, in order to get out of the agreement, all you have to do is provide a 30-day written notice. Most people do not know that. So you're not signing up for a year, you're not turning over your assets or your home. And if these places are asking you that, give me a call, because that's not state regs. All right, so SNF stands for Skilled Nursing Facility. ALF is Assisted Living Facility. So there's major differences between the two entities. I like to explain that assisted living is more like home. They promote independence, but there's caregivers in place should an individual need help with activities of daily living. Nursing homes are more like hospital environments. It's the last place we try to place anyone if it can be avoided. It's most restrictive environment, and especially during COVID. COVID's really rocked the nursing home world. It's across the board. You just see short staff. But anyway, so if you think home-like environment, assisted living, hospital environment, nursing home. So they offer similar services, but some of the differences, assisted livings have a full calendar of programs and activities, where nursing homes, it's a more limited calendar. You're lucky if you have 3 activities a day. Usually it's going to involve some kind of religious activity, bingo, and maybe a current events. So assisted livings can help with medical and non-medical transportation, where there's limited transportation for nursing homes. Meals are more like restaurant style dining in assisted living, where in nursing homes, you're usually given a piece of paper, you circle what the choice is. They're prepared in bulk. They don't use a lot of seasonings, where assisted livings, most of them have culinary chefs. So the food is actually good. I've eaten in both, and I can attest that I will never eat in a nursing home again. Laundry in assisted livings, laundry is done individually, where in nursing homes, they're done collectively. So you have a higher opportunity of losing an article of clothing in a nursing home because of that. All right, so next screen here. Aging in place at home is no longer an option. So everyone knows that the boomers are booming, and we're projected to have 20% of the senior population age 65 or over by the age of 2050. The sandwich generation, which is the adult children, is primarily, that's who I'm speaking with when clients are calling me. They have children of their own. They're working.
Am I not like kind of your
somebody's college education?
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. they're the ones that have the responsibilities of caring for their children, work, and now something's wrong with mom and dad, and now they have to help meet mom and dad. So you're seeing a influx of these types of situations. The majority of the clients that I work with in the senior population, they want to age a place in home for as long as possible. But when is aging at home no longer safe? So 4 things to consider: safety, nutrition, I need to move this here, managing medications, and loneliness. I don't know why my screen is not moving. I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. Oh, there we go. All right, safety matters. One of the most common reasons why folks are moving to assisted living is because of falls. So 20 to 30% of people who fall suffer moderate to severe injuries, hip fractures, head traumas, etc. An indicator of a future fall is a past fall. There's tons of research on this and documentation. And so if a person falls once, the likelihood that they're going to fall again is very highly probable. So if you have a loved one or a friend, you know, it might be comforting to them that they want to remain in their home, but the question that you need to ask, are they safe? Because falls will force a decision in care. Nutrition and hydration. This is something that we really see often in our senior clients, especially those that are living alone. Cooking is a chore. You know, I have 2 sons and a husband. One son lives with us part-time, the other son is off at college, and my husband works in the evening. So I find when I'm by myself, why do I want to cook? I'm going to find a snack or something because I don't want to go through the chore of making a meal just for myself. But when it's for my family, it's not a problem. So if you think about a senior who's living alone and maybe just don't feel like cooking, that's pretty common. So there's all kinds of resources, from online groceries, family, if there's family present, divvying it up. Caregivers can help with meal preparation and Meals on Wheels program. So the question here is asking if your senior loved one or friend is really having a nutritious, well-balanced, and staying hydrated. Checking the items in the refrigerator. Are they spoiled? Are they past the expiration date? Maybe inviting them over for a meal from time to time, because food is always better when shared with company. Dehydration can lead to a UTI, urinary tract infection. UTIs in the senior population has a stronger impact on them than UTIs in younger folks. So UTIs can exacerbate dementia-like symptoms. It can cause hallucinations. It can cause behaviors, aggression. It really can be detrimental for seniors. Medication management, this is another one. We are seeing an increase of Narcan usage in the senior population due to medications being mismanaged. I had a registered nurse, and in our industry, we always say nurses are the worst because nurses, you know everything, but they've been retired for 20, 25 years and things have changed. But I had a nurse, she was a former RN, and she took her medication, had forgotten that she took it. So she took it again. A few hours later, again forgotten. So she took it for a 3rd time. She ended up overdosing. Her daughter, by the grace of God, actually came in, found her, and they had to call 911 and take her to the ER, and they Narcaned her on the way. So it is very common, but the studies show from the Society of Internal Medicine, 41% of seniors reported taking 5 or more prescription medications, and more than half of those had 2 or more prescribing physicians. There's a breakdown of communication between the primary provider and, say, a specialist such as a cardiologist or neurologist. If you suspect your loved one or friend may not be taking their medications as prescribed, that's the time to start considering either caregivers in the home for medication reminders or assisted living care. This topic, when I presented prior to COVID, it's really an unknown, but I think COVID has highlighted the impact of isolation that can have not only on seniors, but people in general. So loneliness increases the likelihood of mortality by 26%. It's as the same effects as if a person would smoke 15 cigarettes a day. It's associated with increased risk of developing coronary heart disease or stroke, risk of high blood pressure, and risk of onset of disability. It also puts folks at a higher risk of cognitive decline, and a 64% chance of developing clinical dementia. These are staggering statistics. Depression can affect 1/4 to 1/3 of semi-homebound folks. So those are individuals that may be at home but still getting out from time to time, but 60% of completely homebound. Loneliness and low social interaction are predicative of suicide in older age. White males that are 65 years or older are one of the higher categories of suicide risk. Now, if you think about a caregiver in a home versus assisted living with other people, that's a major benefit of assisted living because of the opportunities for socialization and stimulation. All right, here's a big topic that a lot of people are not aware of, Medicare. So, I get calls and they're, it's an adult child looking for, assisted living for their mom. And they'll say, well, mom has Medicare. Well, that's great. But it's not going to cover housing or rent in assisted living or long-term care. Medicare will cover rehab stays. So in order to get a rehab stay, you have to have a 3-night qualifying stay in a hospital in order for Medicare to kick in. The first 20 days of a rehab stay is covered at 100% by Medicare. Day 21 through 100, Medicare will cover 80%. The remaining 20% is either covered by secondary insurance or privately paid. Medicare and assisted livings cover just what it covers as if someone was living at home. Primary care physicians or therapies such as PT, OT, speech, and other medical services such as podiatry. Medicaid, this is a big misnomer. So Medicare is a federal insurance. Medicaid is federal and state. So every state is different on the rules and regulations in Medicaid. So in Maryland, in order to qualify for long-term care Medicaid in a nursing home, you have to be financially eligible and medically eligible. So assets have to be under $2,500 for Maryland. Medically eligible, there's a specific form called the 3871B form. It's 4 pages that would need to be completed by a physician to determine medical eligibility. Most people are like, oh, well, mom ran out of funds, we need to get her to Medicaid. That's not how it works. You have to have a skilled reason, meaning you have to have care by a nurse. So someone that may be full assistance on activities of daily living, incontinence, bedbound, wheelchair bound, just a very high level of care. When folks are going to see lawyers and to have their assets protected, you really need to be educated because there are lawyers out there that will set a person up for long-term care Medicaid and then they're not medically eligible. I see this so often. It is extremely frustrating because lawyers know law and Medicaid, but when have they gotten the education on the healthcare field, right? So this is where we can come in and try to advocate for folks. It covers some residential assisted living homes. So assisted livings in the past used to have maybe 1 or 2 Medicaid beds. So if a resident ran out of funds, they could just flip them to Medicaid and they could age in place. In 2018, Medicaid had a change in laws indicating that only buildings that had full access to the kitchen or full access to enter and leave a building at will could qualify for Medicaid. So your traditional assisted livings, like your Sunrises and Brookdales and the larger chains, no longer qualified because there's commercial kitchens, and per assisted living regulations, residents are not allowed in the commercial kitchens due to safety reasons. Also, if you think about the population in assisted living, there's many people in assisted living with cognitive decline. So it's not safe for them to leave the building without someone with them. So residential assisted livings are like a home like you and I live in, but they're converted to an assisted living. They're regulated by the state of Maryland. They offer similar services for care with activities of daily living, 3 meals a day and snacks, medication management, but it's a lesser number of folks. Typically, on average, residents are range between 4 and 8 in a residential assisted living, but they can go as high as 17. They're generally more economic than a traditional assisted living. Now, the Medicaid assisted living waiver, there's all different kinds of Medicaid. There's community Medicaid, there's QMB, there's full-blown Medicaid, there's long-term care Medicaid, and there's the assisted living Medicaid waiver. This has changed during COVID, where they changed it to a priority list. So folks are rated 1 through 6 based on the level of care that they needed. About 40,000 people in the state of Maryland are currently on this waiting list. Level 1 is priority. So level 1s right now are on an approximate wait time of 2 years to get onto the waiver in order to get placement in assisted living. It's horrible, really. Okay, now this is national.
Excuse me, Ms. Kidd. I'm sorry. There was a question in the chat regarding how many or what percentage of assisted living facilities provide benevolent funds.
Not a lot anymore. I'm in 3 states. I'm in 7 counties in Maryland, 3 in Pennsylvania, and 2 in West Virginia. There was one that had the benevolent fund, but they were bought out and they removed it. That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Okay, so cost of long-term care. This is a national survey for Maryland. So your skilled nursing facilities, if you go private pay, you're looking around $10,000 for a shared room and $12,000 in a private room. In assisted living, you're looking around $4,500 for a private room in a traditional assisted living, a bigger one. That's rent only, that does not cover care. All right, this is costs in Frederick as of 2023. Oh, I forgot the 3. So the residential assisted livings in Frederick range between $3,500 and $5,500. Your general assisted living, look at this gap, $5,000 to $13,000, depending on the community, the size of the room, and the level of care. Memory care is $5,000 to $12,000 in Frederick, and skilled nursing home is $13,000 to $20,000. So if you look at the cost of living per county in Maryland, so Washington County is a more, I would say, a lower socioeconomic county than Frederick. And Frederick is little bit lower than, say, Montgomery or Anne Arundel or Howard. So the higher the cost of real estate, you're going to see the higher the cost of real estate in assisted living as well. Okay, so assisted living is private pay. So we consider the monthly income, savings, annuities, you know, what assets a person has. Sources to help pay privately. If we have any veterans in this group, I want you to pay attention to this. There's a specific benefit called aid and attendance. It is good for a veteran that has served at least 1 day active duty during wartime. You do not have to be boots on the ground to be eligible for that. Surviving spouses of a veteran that also served 1 day during active duty are also eligible. In order to qualify for this benefit, assets have to be under $150,000. The veteran receives $2,229 a month to help offset the cost of caregivers in the home or help offset the cost of assisted living. Let me back up, I forgot. So you have to also medically and financially qualify for this benefit. So financially, it's under $150,000 in assets. Medically, you have to have assistance with 2 or more activities of daily living. Meal prep is considered as an activity for this benefit. However, medication management isn't. It doesn't make sense to me, but I don't make the rules. So the vet gets $229. The surviving spouse would earn $1,432. If the veteran has an unhealthy spouse, they receive $1,750. And if the veteran and spouse both need care, they receive $2,642. And that's a nice chunk of change when care is quite expensive. So there's a process you have to go through to apply. You would need the DD 214, marriage certificates, death certificates, a whole slew of items. But I have resources. If there is a veteran that needs to apply for this benefit, feel free to call me. I'm happy to provide guidance. Long-term care insurance. It's really important to be able to understand your policy. There's so many multiple different policies out there. Some cover caregivers in the home, some cover assisted living, some cover both. There's usually an elimination period. It's highly recommended that family or the person who wants to implement the policy does not call without a professional. If you think about it, when all these policies were purchased 20, 30 years ago, they were raking in the dough, right? Now they're cashing in, and these nurses that need to do the assessment are trained to deny. Statistically, it's shown that when a family or individual calls on their own, they have about a 10% chance of activating the policy. 10%, that's how much they're denying. When a medical professional or someone in the industry that understands long-term care insurance attempts to apply to activate the policy, that increases to 90%. So I highly recommend, finding a professional to help with that. Reverse mortgages, it's not something I recommend doing, but that is something that could be done in order to get funding for care. Life insurance, I want you to be educated if anyone has a life insurance policy. Some can convert to a long-term care insurance policy, which will provide you funding for care. And then there are companies out there, if the home is the main asset, there's companies that could provide a bridge to assisted living loans. Once the application is completed and approved, funds are dispensed within 24 hours. And once the house is sold, then you can pay off that loan. There's also real estate investors. This is very different than real estate agents. Investors can come in, purchase the property, remove all the belongings from the house, and bring it to settlement within 2 weeks. Now, you're not going to make as much on the home as a real estate agent would. It's about 10% less than an agent, but they're doing all the heavy lifting, getting it out, and they're getting the money more quickly than what a real estate agent could do. Oh no, I guess I am at the end. Okay. So being at home is always the best plan A. I always recommend creating a plan B and a plan C. Most people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. I would say 90 to 95% of my clients are coming to me in a crisis situation. Very few folks are coming to create plans when they're at home and everything is stable. That's absolutely the best time to start information gathering and doing research on the cost of caregivers in the home or the cost of assisted living. What I see most commonly is, you know, a medical event happens. Mom fell and broke her hip. Dad had a heart attack. They can't return home and they don't know where to start. They're unsure if, you know, there's a power of attorney. They're unsure of the financial situation. Whoever you trust for your care, they should know these important factors. If you don't have a power of attorney, I highly recommend getting one established, because that policy does not kick in. You still have full autonomy, but if you become incapacitated or deemed incapable, the person that you trust to make decisions on your behalf would then be able to speak for you. That's it. That's my little one-on-one education with senior living. Does anyone have any questions? I can go to the chat box. Let me see here.
Okay.
Kriste,
So, yes.
maybe you should tell us how to access your services and the cost of your services.
Our service is free for seniors and families. A lot of work that we do, anytime we're getting services into the home or working with Medicaid, we are not reimbursed. We are reimbursed after placement into an assisted living by the assisted living. So I kind of like to look at it that it's community service, giving back to one family at a time. It's our philosophy that we never turn anyone away despite the lack of financial resources. If they need care, we're going to do our best. We may not always have the appropriate answers, but we are working within the confines of, you know, state regulations and the services that are out there. I can tell you, I'm sorry, my dog is sitting behind me and he's pushing me off my chair. I can tell you that the folks that are financially not sound, those that have lower incomes, no savings, no assets, no home, they're the ones that really fall through the gaps. We have placed as low for $800 a month in a residential assisted living, but it's only in Baltimore. There's no other county in the state of Maryland that takes low income like Baltimore. Anytime I have someone usually under $2,000, that's Baltimore.
That the city, if you can share that. I mean, what are the facilities like in Baltimore in comparison to other, you know?
They're mixture. Some are really nice. Some have owners and staff that are very communicative, provide quality care. We identify which homes we can confidently refer to based on our experience with working with the owners, getting to know the staff, but also client feedback. There are some that we've learned that are a little shady, and we close them in our system. We will not continue to refer to them. But that goes not only to Baltimore, that goes just across the board.
I have one more question if I can,
Sure.
and it's about long-term care. I have long-term care, and as you know, I've had it for a while now. And of course, they've gone up a couple of times, maybe not as much as I hear it costs now, so I'm kind of blessed there. I want to know, and I have used it once. You know, as you said, somebody comes in and evaluates my husband, that type of thing. So I want to know, you said a professional. Okay, I'm just thinking now I need to go and review my policy, which you know, you need. So I don't want to go back to them. I guess I should, you know, you said get a professional. So what type of, are you talking about a lawyer, or when you say a professional, you're well, what I'm thinking about, financial advisor, would that be a person? They wouldn't really know that much about, well, they might know a little bit long-term care, but what do you suggest?
There's actually companies that are out there that specifically deal with long-term care insurance. They are a fee for service. I'll have to email Wanda the company's name. Right now it is slipping my mind, but I can email her. Depending, they offer a free consultation. Oh, I remember, it's called Family Solutions for Care, and I can get Wanda that contact information. But so they offer a free consultation. They can actually help you activate the policy, and they can actually help you monitor it. So if someone's in assisted living, the long-term care insurance is going to need the monthly bills, or caregivers in the home, you're going to have to send the invoices. It's tedious, but you know, this is a company that can help manage it for folks if someone needs that type of service. I don't know their fees. I have no idea the cost of it, but it's, you know, with a free consultation, you can inquire.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Kriste. I have a question along the lines. I put something in the chat, but it has to stay on the topic of long-term care. I do have long-term care. And I'm wondering, how regulated are these companies? And the reason I say that is because I had a pretty decent fee initially, and then I hit 60 something, and all of a sudden it got jacked up really high. And then it just got jacked up again. And then they say it has nothing to do with age.
Yes,
I'm questioning that because now I'm in that age range where people are starting to use it. So is it going up because of that, really, or what?
Yeah, I think there's multiple reasons for it. I mean, COVID has jacked up everyone's pricing, but it is normal to see price increases as a person ages.
Right. They've been pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Now I admit that I bought a top of the line, which I did because, one, you know, I was looking to travel, and it does cover outside of the United States. So should I need something while I'm away, which is why I'm kind of like, I am planning some trips outside of the country. So I'm a little hesitant to reduce the amount of coverage. But yeah, it just seemed to me that it was like, oh, I hit this age and now you're suddenly going to jack it up to where now I'm paying more than a mortgage. I mean, it's pretty high.
Oh, it's expensive. I know. When people ask my advice on long-term care insurance, I'll give you an example. I am a money hoarder. I invest my money. I stash my money away. My grandfather taught me, and he absolutely ruined me, but he said, when you go to buy something, ask yourself if you want it or if you need it. If you want it, walk away. If you need it, now ask yourself, can you afford it? And if you can afford it, you buy it. You don't put it on a credit card. You save the money until you can afford to buy it in cash, right? So he's ingrained in me about saving. So for a person like me that saves their money, I wouldn't invest in long-term care insurance. Now, My husband, on the other hand, he's a spender. He doesn't care what it costs. If he wants it, he's going to buy it. He works hard, and that's his philosophy. For someone like him, I would recommend long-term care insurance.
Kriste,
Mhm.
it's Wanda. This is a topic that we actually discuss quite frequently in our MRSPA legislative committee. And for quite a number of years, we have advocated at the legislature, the state legislature, for some kind of tax credit for long-term care policies, for people that own long-term care policies. And what we have found in our research and our work around that is that essentially the insurance companies, when they started to offer these policies, a couple decades ago, I guess weren't actually planning for people to actually use them.
Exactly.
And so now that people are using them and the insurance companies are having to pay out, they are either, they're doing one of two things, or essentially giving you one of two choices if you have one of the policies, which are, one, they either jack your premium up like this other person was just saying to get the same benefit, or they put you in a situation where you have to reduce the benefit in order to be able to find, to be able to pay for the premium. In other words, they're going to give you less in return for what you paid in. And so these are just some of the things that we're finding. And the other piece to that, and not that anybody wanted a legislative discussion right now, but is that the insurance company lobby is very strong. And we have been very unsuccessful in being able to get the legislature to agree to even a small tax credit. We're talking $250, right? Or a $500 tax credit for people that have been paying into long-term care premiums. Even when we know that those long-term care policies save the state, a lot of money in Medicaid, right? That they're not having to pay out because the person actually took the initiative to get that long-term care policy. So it really is a vast a world of having to know who to call and what the right thing to do is for your own personal self based on your financial situation and your family situation and so forth. But I appreciate your, sharing this information on the family solutions for care, and certainly saying that, getting someone to, help you when you're trying to actually use that policy is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I just made myself a note to email you that contact information, Wanda. So
Sure.
you can get that out to folks.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's another question in the chat. It says, how does a trust, so if you already have your money in a trust, whether it be a revocable or irrevocable trust, how does that affect assisted or scaled nursing facility applications, I suppose?
That's going to be a financial advisor question. But any asset, Medicaid's going to look back with a fine-tooth comb. I had actually a family friend of mine gift his children, I can't remember the amount, it was like $80,000. And he was penalized by Medicaid. So he could not get Medicaid for, I think it was like 9 months. So we had to find him an assisted living. And family had to pitch in to pay for his care in order, for the 8 or 9 months until he could qualify. They're going to look at assets too. But that's a question I would direct to a financial advisor, because when we get into revocable and irrevocable trusts, I'm a little bit knowledge, but that's not my forte.
All right, thanks. And is it possible for you to, and maybe this is also a financial advisor question. So clearly, you said, earlier in your presentation that the cost of these facilities is anywhere from, $3,500. Well, you said you had the cheapest one you could find was $800 in Baltimore. So, well,
Mhm.
let's say from $800 to $20,000 a month for
Mhm.
for these services. Do you have any general guidance in terms of, how do people start having these conversations with their family or friends, whomever it is that they want to talk to about beginning this conversation? In other words, about having the power of attorney and what to do with the house and where do they want to go versus where they don't want to go, and what's the reality of that. And because these conversations are obviously, they're difficult, they're very personal, they're emotional, and oftentimes there's resistance. So do you have any recommendations around all of that?
Yeah, give me a minute. I actually cut these slides out because normally I do this for adult children. I'm highlighting my slides. I'm going to reshare my screen. It's a good question. All right, so now let me get back to Zoom.
Or there's also another question in the chat too, Kriste.
Okay. So what we see a lot is dancing around the issue, right? There's the elephant in the room, but no one's acknowledging it. Statistically, that's about 75% of family. But when it's too hard to ignore, we just take a deep breath, take it step by step, and here's some conversation starters. So, creating a list of your concerns, that's going to help you, stay organized and stay focused on the conversations that you want to have. Educating yourself, which is what we talked about kind of today, on the options that will be ideal for your parents or loved ones or friends. And learn how important environment is for seniors. So some folks, it depends on the person. Some folks are very introverted. Even if they go to an assisted living, they're going to stay in their room and come out for meals, where other folks are more social and they're going to thrive. So for a more introverted person, they might be well adjusted better in a residential home with smaller amount of residents, where a social person, that probably wouldn't be an ideal environment. A social person would probably thrive more when there's, a lot more folks around. So we always recommend talking in person, right? Emphasizing empathy, not sympathy. There's a big difference in that. Don't rush. Take your time with this. This might start as a casual conversation and extend over a couple of weeks into months. And plan to talk again and again, because some people, from my experience, what I notice, it's the adult child that's recommending that their parents need care. They're falling, they're not eating, they're mismanaging the medications, whatever the situation. And it's easier to hush a loved one, right? You can just kind of ignore them more easily. Whatever they're saying goes in one ear, out the other, and we're not really fully listening to the message. But when you have a professional come in, and this is part of our service that we offer, I simply come in and have that conversation. I'm a non-emotional contact. I'm a professional in the industry, so I have all these weird statistics that I know, and I have a genuine conversation with them. I would say maybe 8 out of 10 times, I have success at getting people to take next steps to get the care that they need. But you'll always have those occasional strong like bulls, stubborn kind of personalities that, you know, that are not going to take next steps. These are some conversation starters, again, depending on the situation, but how is it living at home alone? Do you still feel safe? Do you feel lonely sometimes? How do you feel about driving? I can tell you right now, when a person loses their driver's license, it is a significant loss of self-control. I watched my grandfather lose his wife of 66 years, lose his dog Cuddles of 16 years, lose his house of 35 years. Nothing impacted that man until we had to take his driver's license at the age of 91. And that was the beginning of his decline. Is it ever hard to manage your finances and keep up with paying your bills? We see a lot of situations where scammers are scamming. The stories I could tell, it's horrific. Or having utilities cut off because they haven't paid it. We have financial managers that we can refer that their service is specifically paying bills and making sure their finances are in order, and checking on the accounts and make sure, you know, $8,000 wasn't given to Harry Schmenahanahan, you know, on some type of scam. Ever wonder about getting a helping hand with housekeeping and laundry? Caregivers can do that. That'll be more expensive than a housekeeper, but it's kind of a creative way to opening the door. In fact, my mother-in-law lives down in Tennessee, and she's been falling and her health has been declining. And, you know, we talked about getting caregivers in the home, and she was resistant to the idea. And I said, Sherry, listen, I'm like, you just finished telling me that you can't bend over to get the dishes out of the dishwasher. You're having trouble doing laundry. Larry, her husband, has to drive you to get groceries, and you get exhausted going to the grocery store. This is how caregivers can help. They can help with the dishes. They can help with the caregivers. I'm sorry, the laundry. You simply write a grocery list. They can go shopping for you. They can help with ADLs and IADLs. So she finally, after multiple conversations, agreed to start at 4 hours a week. Most companies, and I know this company, so they made a favor for me, but most companies require a minimum of 12 hours a week and 4-hour shifts because of staffing purposes. And then the last one, would you feel less stressed if you didn't have to worry about upkeep with the house? I know that was a concern for my grandfather after my grandmother passed away. It was too much for him to you know, mow the lawn, you know, clean the home, make the meals, do the laundry. That's why we made the decision for him to move in with me. And then the final thing is avoid information overload. You want to be aware of, like one of the slides said, talk again and again and again. Just start with brief conversations like I did with my mother-in-law about, you know, have you thought about getting assistance from time to time, to really, you know, I think it took about 4 or 5 conversations over the last few months for her to finally agree. But you want to give little information in the beginning. You don't want to say, you know, I found 8 great assisted livings and 4 different caregiving agencies, and we can go and see all these places. It's going to be overwhelming. So we need to be delicate and cognizant of how we're, you know, providing these conversations, especially when you meet resistance. So hopefully some of those conversation starters could be, you know, the beginning for folks that have loved ones or friends with concerns.
I
Alright.
see that there are questions in the chat box, and maybe you could start answering some of those. And I want to remind everybody that the services that Kriste is offering are free. And
Right.
certainly they're the experts to help us through this process.
One thing I want to recommend before I answer the questions, be very careful if you go online. The reason being, there's online agencies that are guerrilla marketing, and they're commonly known, caring.com, A Place for Mom. What they do is they profile the assisted living as if they were the assisted living. So you think you're clicking on Brookdale, and then you go to the site and it says, for pricing information, click here. And then you enter your name, your phone number, email address. Within 3 minutes of submitting that information, your phone is going to ring. A lot of people don't even realize it's A Place for Mom, and they think that they're talking to the marketing director at Brookdale. They're confused because that's the site that they clicked on. So you give them their information. Now they're going to send it out to 8 different assisted living communities. Your phone is going to ring 8 different times. And they're going to continue to call, because marketing directors, that's part of their role, is to follow up with prospect leads. Your in-person companies, Oasis, assisted living locators, Care Patrol, there's some independent family-owned and operated placement agencies. We protect the client's information. So no contact information is given out. All communication goes through us until family gives permission to release it. So be very careful when you get online, because you will be bombarded by calls. Let me see here. He says, when it's hard because every time someone types, I lose my space.
The first one, I think, is what are benevolent funds?
Okay, so benevolent funds is usually when it's either a religious community or a nonprofit community, and they do fundraisers to have an account for the benevolent funds. So when the resident monies deplete, they can take money from the benevolent fund to still provide the monthly fees for their care. You see this less and less often. Wanda, if you want to read out the questions, that would kind of be effective.
Sure, gotcha. So the next one is about, is there an insurance policy that would cover up to a year of in-home care after a hospital stay? Is there such a thing? Do you know?
There's all different kinds of policies. They vary for elimination periods. They vary on daily amounts. They vary on length of time. You know, again, that's something where a financial advisor could help provide guidance. There's newer policies now called hybrid policies, where if you never use the policy, you can leave it to your spouse or your children. It's one of the positive changes for long-term care insurance, but that would be better answered by a financial advisor.
Okay, and then this next one is, do teacher health insurance plans pay for long-term care? And you may or may not know the answer to that, but I would say that generally the answer to that is no.
No.
Right, you're going to, you know, as Kriste mentioned earlier, the you know, your Medicare will pick up, like she said, after you've been in the hospital for 3 nights and you need rehab, you know, kind of thing. So that will work. But in terms of long-term care, absolutely not. Not unless you have a long-term care plan specifically.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And those plans are very expensive, by the way. And as someone said earlier, the older you get, the more expensive they get.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any other questions anyone has? Now's your time.
Would Kriste give us her address or how to get in touch with her?
Yeah, so let me type in the chat box my contact information. So
Okay,
everyone has it.
Well, and let me say that it's also available on the MRSPA website under benefits.
okay, thank you.
And just so you guys know, Kriste and her company are an MRSPA member benefits provider approved by the committee and the board of directors. So that's why Kriste's doing this presentation for us today. And there's her information in the chat box. Does everybody know how to access that?
No,
If you go on the bottom, if you run your cursor over the bottom of the screen where you see all the people's faces,
yes,
you should see a little box that says chat. If you just
Yes.
click on that little box, and then you'll have to scroll down to the side, but let me read it out for everybody. It's 301.
wait a minute. Okay,
301
Yes.
456 6378. So again, that's 301 456 6378. And her email address is a little bit longer, so we'll have to bear with me here. It is kkidd, so K for Kriste, Kriste Kidd, kkidd at your YOUR Oasis OASIS advisor ADVISOR.com. So kkidd at your Oasis advisor.com, and your Oasis advisor is all one big long word.
Okay.
And then someone asked about the PowerPoint decks. Yes, the entire video will be on you'll have access to it from our website, and we'll get that up as soon as we can. We might not get to it today, so if you want to check back tomorrow or the day after that, but depends on how long it takes us to get it formatted and so forth to get it up there. But certainly it'll be available to you, and so you can see everything that was in the slides. It'll be in the video, and you'll be able to scroll ahead and backwards and so forth on the video, so you don't have to listen to the entire thing or watch the entire thing over again if you don't want to. Oh, there we go. I don't know who did that, but thank you.
One
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to mention, just so everyone's aware, we are a nationwide company. So if you went to our website, which is simply oasissenior-advisors.com, you can click the button change location and put in a city or a state or zip code to see if there's an advisor that covers that area. For Maryland, so everyone's aware, I cover Washington, Frederick, Howard County, sliver of Montgomery, sliver of Carroll. And then in PA, I cover Franklin, Adams, and York, and West Virginia, Jefferson, and Berkeley. But the other advisors in Maryland cover Southern Maryland, Northwest Baltimore, and the rest of Carroll County, Montgomery County, and PG counties. So if you're in one of those areas, if you called me, I could connect you with the advisor in those counties as well. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity and discussing such fun topics. I'm here if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I appreciate spending this past hour with you all.
And I would like to thank everybody for joining us. I think the most important information I got out of here is we need to plan ahead and not have those conversations in a crisis situation. So I hope we've provided information that's useful to you. Please reach out to MRSPA if there are other topics that you'd like us to cover. and we'll plan future webinars. Thank you very much, and thank you, Kriste.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank
And
you.
thank you so very much.
All right, bye now.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.